Now the joint freeing series. The joint freeing series takes each joint of the body in turn and looks at the imbalances that can be caused around that joint. The series is used to look at flexibility of the body and weaknesses of the body. It looks at which movements that we make and which muscles we use in making those movements when we cycle, and consequently which muscles we don't use when we cycle. And so if we want to achieve optimal health, flexibility and strength so that we have a balanced posture, then by practicing this series, it allows us to determine which muscles are imbalanced, i.e. which ones are tight, which ones are weak, and therefore gives a correction so that we can keep this perfect posture or work towards the perfect posture. And this means if we can look to achieve a balance in our body, so we're stretching and strengthening all the groups of muscles, then ultimately we'll end up with a much more balanced posture, reduce the risk of injuries and keep healthier for longer. Now the technical bit. All muscles in the body work in pairs. I'm going to take the example of the arm. The joint, we'll take the elbow joint as the joint of focus. In order to bend the arm, the muscle must extend across that joint. The biceps, this muscle here, we all know the biceps, basically contracts, and in doing so, because it crosses the joint, it pulls the arm up. So that creates the muscle to contract. When we straighten the arm, that muscle relaxes, and it's the opposite muscle that contracts to create the straightening. So the bicep contracts and the arm bends, the triceps contracts and the arm straightens. To maintain stability of the joint in that movement, when we bend the arm, the biceps contracts, the triceps works with it and relaxes, it stretches so that the joint stays stable. When we straighten the arm, the triceps contract, but the biceps relaxes in order for the arm to straighten. So you can see that if for example my biceps is so strong and so tight, then when I'm trying to straighten my arm, if it's so tight, I'm never going to be able to get my arm straight, because it won't allow it, there's not the flexibility there. If my biceps are so tight that I can't fully straighten my arm, it also means that the triceps, the contracting muscle, can never go to its full contraction because the biceps is stopping it. And it's this principle that I want to demonstrate to you in cycling. So think about our posture of cycling. You know, we've got the various types of cycling, but for a road posture, on a road bike, generally we're in this position. So our arms are stretched out in front of us, our shoulders are coming forward, our backs are rounded, and then we've got all this other stuff going on with our legs. So we're already determined, our posture's already determined by the bike to an extent, and it means that muscles are only being used partially. So some muscles are partially being used to create the movement. So in other words, they're partially contracting to create the movement. And the opposite muscle is partially relaxing to allow the movement. And that's really why we end up with these imbalances, because we're only using the muscles to part of their range of movement. Looking at the major joints of the body, each joint has a predetermined range of movement. So the medical standards have determined how much a joint should move to be normal. And so this series looks at each of those joints in turn and suggests what the normal range of movement is. So we can see that if we can't do the normal range of movement, then that's a muscle that we want to either strengthen or stretch.